I have 4 children with special needs, but when we're out and about and someone's looking at them like, oh my gosh, this mom has 4 kids. One of them's screaming, one of them's upset, the other one's chewing on this random thing that's inside their mouth. Does she not see that? And I turn around and I go, they have special needs. And then they go, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, are you really sorry? Or are you just thinking I'm like this crazy person that doesn't, I'm just trying to shop and get in and out of the store as quickly as possible. I'm not behaviorally wanting my kid to scream and yell, but hey, it happens.
I'm here with Natalie Connelly. Very excited to have you on. I'm excited to dive in and learn a little bit more. A little bit about me. I taught special ed for 5 years. I was an instructional aide for 2 years while I was getting my credential in moderate to severe. I taught special day class for 5 years. I got my master's in special education. And like we were just talking about, I loved every day showing up to class and nothing was ever the same. Who knows what was going to happen? Yeah. And it was always exciting and exhilarating. So I loved it. And I had to step away, unfortunately, when we moved to Idaho for a couple of years. But this Unspecial has always been on my mind. I've always had a curiosity and heart for the parents, just watching and hearing their journeys. And always just wondering, like, what is going on at home and how are these parents able to go about this journey? So that's kind of how Unspecial came about. Super excited to learn about your story. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in Chino, California, which right now we live in Big Bear, so about an hour and a half away from where we currently live. I lived there from 5, and my mom still lives there, and my 2 younger siblings. I'm one of 5. So I'm the oldest and kind of took care of everybody. I was always a go-getter, so that was always my mindset, was always to do that. So, kind of not a sidebar, but like my dad walked out on my family while my mom was pregnant with my twin brothers. I was automatically put in a role to kind of be an adult and like watch everybody and make sure everybody was taken care of. And so that was always my mindset from 13 on was, hey, you got to watch and see. And, so I would pick up on things with my siblings, and I was just like, well, watching them struggle because both my brothers, they're twins. So they were born premature. And so I was like, all right, well, this just like sparked the fire too to be a neonatologist. I was like, I'm going to go to school to do this and work in the NICU and do it all. And I'm going to do this whole thing. So throughout high school and stuff, that's what I wanted to do. And so I did all that I could. Went to Cal Baptist and got my degree in biology.
What year did you graduate?
Huh?
What year did you graduate?
I graduated.
I don't want to age you, but.
Well, it was a long time ago. I graduated from CBU in 2010. So
okay,
almost 15 years ago.
Yeah, I had a bunch of buddies there at that time. I went to Point Loma and graduated in 2011.
Yes. I want to say CBU was at its like heyday during that time. I feel like it was a lot of fun. I was in the music program, so we got to travel everywhere and perform and do all that because I have a musical background as well. I was able to do a lot of things and work with doctors who kind of took me under their wings and said, hey, you want to go to medical school? Like, come and shadow with me, be my medical scribe. So I was able to experience a lot of the medical field before I even like went on to like my master's or medical school or MCATs or any of those things. And once I graduated, I got married, and I still had that ambition, and that's what I was going to do, and just saw that the medical field wasn't exactly what I was hoping it to be, that whole team mentality, and I didn't like that. It's you versus me. I'm better than you because I'm a doctor and you're a nurse or this, and this. And I was like, no, like we're a team. That's our patient. There's a whole team of us. And so I was like, you know what? Let's back up a little bit. Let's see what we want to do. Ended up going to Loma Linda and did the public health program there, and really was trying to dive in and like, where could I still work in NICU? and came to find out I could be a dietitian and be my own boss, and I could do that. Got my degree in public health and in nutrition, and was able to work in the NICU and the ICU. And so I do have a medical background. I was able to know quite a bit, but I didn't anticipate that I would be in a world of special needs. Knew of it. I experienced it. Our church has a special needs program. And so before I even had kids, they would come by and I would just love on them because they were just amazing and awesome. And I didn't like how people looked at them. And so I, teach my kiddos that were in my little group that they love to run and jump and hop and skip and love Legos just like you do. They just might think a little bit differently, and that's okay. But I didn't ever think that I would be in that world as far as like a mom to kiddos with special needs. And not that me saying that like, oh, I would never do that. It just was never part of that mindset. It was just life, and you do it and you love everybody. So that obviously trickled down into me having our first and starting that way.
Yeah, and that's where I came up with Unspecial, because I didn't like how kind of just the perception of special needs. So like our aim and mission is to educate parents and to be a support for parents, but to switch the mindsets on how we view individuals that have some unique differences. So that's where the word unspecial came from. Because they're not that different. I always think like, all right, so in a special ed class, there's such a big emphasis on visuals and pictures. But if you think about our everyday life, we see the same thing: stop signs, business signs, menus, everything. It's all the same. And so I dream one day to write a book on how I want to call it Not That Different, and just spell out all the similarities. But that's for another time.
I see it as that every person can benefit from the same things. Is there really a difference between these kiddos, or just helping everybody?
Right. At the gym every morning, like I go to a group workout. And so there's a timer, there's a schedule of all the workouts. Before the workout, the trainer models all the workouts. And I'm like, this is everything I do in class, and they're doing it for me in this gym. Like it's all
and
it's
it prepares
crazy.
you know what to anticipate, but people don't pull that. They go, oh, that's just for them. Well, no, it benefits us too.
Definitely.
So
And
I loved it when I first listened to your podcast. The first one, I was just like, there's someone out there that has like a similar mentality. This is awesome. I love this. Because like you said, this whole world of special needs, it's a difficult one. And it's a very unfortunate one in regards to the way that people are seen and treated versus the normalcy, like just let them be a kid or a person.
Yep. Yeah. But then it's interesting because I volunteer at special needs at my church, and I started bringing in my 8-year-old, and immediately he just goes to the other 8-year-old and they just play cars. He didn't ask a question, didn't say a word. And then after church, I'm like, hey, did you have fun? Oh, I had fun. He was fun to play with, cars and everything. And then I was like, do you have any questions or anything? Like, what was going on there? It wasn't a scene that you're normally a part of. And he's like, no, I want to go back. I want to go back next week. I'm like, all right, perfect.
And that's where I'm like, I feel like if we just let kids be kids and we introduce that inclusion piece a little bit more in school, in sports, in different things, I feel like other kiddos would be more, I don't want to say accepting because that's not the right word, but more willing to help and be loving and kind. And hey, like I can do that, or hey, it's okay if you can't do that. You're great at this. But I feel like there's this mentality that it baffles me and it makes me kind of frustrated. And obviously I have 4 children with special needs. So for me, I'm always at the table and like with people being like, you want my children to acclimate to this setting, but you don't want these kiddos to acclimate to my kiddo.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not fair. Like, he's not going to do these type of things. And I'm not saying that, like, I know people are like, well, don't limit your child. I'm not limiting him. I'm just saying realistically, eventually he'll get there, but you can't put him over here and not explain to these other kiddos that he can still run, jump, or if he's able to do that, or love science. And it doesn't make one better than the other. Your brains just work differently. Where maybe math and, writing or reading come easier for you and science is harder.
Right.
And then they're like, oh yeah, I'm not good at soccer, but I'm great at baseball. And I'm like, but does one person make it better than the other? Like, no, I'm just good at this sport. I'm like, that's right. I'm like, presenting it. And I feel like having that discussion to allow both sides and typical peers to realize that they're not really any different. They want to be involved. They just may do things a little bit differently than you, but they can be sitting next to you and be involved.
Right. Yeah, we definitely share a lot of the same mindsets. Some of the frustration I had when I was teaching was just like the clinical book knowledge that they would expect us to implement on every student. And then we would get the behavior specialist coming into the room, and then they would come observe my class, and then I'd have a meeting with them the rest of the day. And then they'd be like, so, ABC, antecedent behavior consequence. What are you doing about this, this, and this? And I was like, you know what? How about we stop focusing on the consequence and just get curious on why they're doing what they're doing and go from there? Because the book you're telling me to throw at them is making them feel like a project. They're a student. So then I remember one time they came in, I was super frustrated. And I got the staff together. I'm like, all right, we're starting a new consulting business. It's going to be called Street Sped. Make your child feel human again. And we're not going to do any of this book stuff. And we're just going to get curious about the person and then intrinsically motivate them. And I mean, I had tons of success.
I would hope for one day that I don't want to say sped all the time, but that sped would be different. That there would be more push in inclusion schools where they're right there next to their gen ed peer versus it being almost it's a right that every sped child has to be in a gen ed setting, but almost sometimes an earning that they have to earn it. They have to be academically appropriate. They have to be academically or behaviorally appropriate. And that has always bothered me because even, I have a history and we can go through that one. But for me, I'm like, all right, you're telling me this. I want to see it. So I'll go in and I'll observe my own kiddo step in the back and just watch. And I'm like, my kid's not acting any differently than those kiddos right over there. But you're getting mad at my child and sending him to the principal's office because he's not sitting still. But yet you have 12 other students in this classroom running around in a gen ed classroom. So are you picking on my son or you just don't want him in here because he's different and the teacher doesn't want to have to support him in these ways?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's what it comes down to. The label, like as a parent, I've kind of gone back and forth on this too, because, there's so many labels: neurodiverse learner, special needs, unique needs, whatever. And everyone's got a different opinion about it. For you, what's the best way to describe, or, I mean, I don't even like saying put a label on it. It's just.
Yeah, it's hard because there's so many people that have these, like you said, opinions of the word sped. No, don't call them that. They're neurodivergent. They're, that's a neurotypical child or a typical child. And I'm like, but in the grand scheme of it all, we know they're sped kiddos, or my kids are special needs. They have special needs. I call them each by their name, but when we're out and about and someone's looking at them like, oh my gosh, this mom has 4 kids. One of them's screaming, one of them's upset, the other one's chewing on this random thing that's inside their mouth. Does she not see that? And I turn around and I go, they have special needs, and then they go, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I'm like, "Are you really sorry? Or are you just thinking I'm like this crazy person that doesn't, I'm just trying to shop and get in and out of the store as quickly as possible. And, I'm not behaviorally wanting my kid to scream and yell, but hey, it happens and it's going to happen." And so for me, I just say, special needs or SPED, that's what I feel. But I feel like for some parents and even some of my friends, they're like, "I don't see what's wrong with SPED. Does that offend you, Natalie?" I'm like, "No, doesn't offend me at all. It's my world. I live in it. And it's the best word I feel to describe a special community in which the child is not any different than the other child, but describes a community where the outside world, the moment that you say that, almost like take a step back and like, I'm sorry for judging you." And I wish that was different. I wish that we didn't have to say that or announce it. And most people don't. But I do say it when I get that evil glare when, one of my kiddos is like screaming or has their hands over their ears or something.
Yeah.
And they're like, "They have special needs. It's just a little too loud." And they're like, "Well, then don't take them shopping." And I was like, "But why not? Do you not go to a concert because it's too loud?" "Oh no, I love going to concerts." "Okay. So I can take my kid shopping. It's okay. You'll survive. Just go to the next aisle."
Explain to me the logic with that. I think people just need to hear it too. So I'm thankful. I'm glad you tell them.
Yeah, I have 4 of them. I've been judged up the wazoo. I've been isolated. I don't have a whole lot of friends because of that. Because and I don't want to say it's specifically because of my children or any of those things. I think it's a world that people are not aware of. So they don't know how to respond or how to support you in what's happening. And I feel like for some people, it's just easier to just step away. Especially with this podcast, I felt like it makes it easier to not feel alone. Because I feel like a lot of the time you can feel alone on this journey or isolated because no one knows how to relate to you. And they don't know how to help you, or they're scared or they're nervous. And maybe not meaning to, they just don't know how to. And, people do say mean things. You're doing too much. Your kid doesn't need that. You're just putting them in a box. And you're like, no, that's the best thing for them. We want to help them as best as we can. And in saying those things, it does hurt and it does push you away. But it can be very isolating because no one lives the life that you live. Hearing, and maybe I'm jumping, but hearing that your child will never talk again, that you will probably never hear mommy or daddy. Riding a bike is going to be really difficult. Running, jumping, eating, writing, academics, any of those things that they will probably never be able to do without help or any of those things. And there's not a handbook that somebody can give you to say, hey, here you go. This is what life is going to look like. And you're kind of like, what do I do? I wasn't prepared for this, or I don't know. And it's a difficult processing. And I know that there's a lot of people that go through denial or not accepting or any of those things. And for like my situation, for me, it was an answer, but it was like, all right, well, that's your thoughts. That's not my thoughts. And it sucks that life is going to be harder for each of my children in varying degrees. And they are going to have to work twice as hard or even harder to accomplish something as easy as riding a bike. But when they do it, it is the most gratifying thing in the entire world to see your child smile. I'm so glad that, my journey looked different than what another parent's would. But just to have the mentality that like, it's going to look different and that's okay. And when they reach that goal, it's the best thing ever.
Have you always had that mindset, or did it take some time to develop that? Like, It's going to look different, but we're going to get them there.
I pretty much had that mindset from the very beginning. And I feel like every parent, if there's something that goes on with your kiddo, you wish you could take it away and it fall on you and not fall on them. And obviously, if I could, I would take everything away from each of my kiddos when they have to deal with pain or hardship. But I ultimately know that God uses everything for good.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm going through is not as bad as what some other people are going through. And you get up and you just keep doing it, because otherwise you can fall down that dark rabbit hole really quickly. And I will also say that this is my coping mechanism of life. And I am a huge World War II buff and I love it so much. And
Okay.
So I always think back to when I get these medical diagnoses and I'm going through it, I'm thinking about it, like what the road ahead is going to look like. And I think back to, and I'm not saying I'm in the same position as these soldiers that were in World War II. I just think if they can get through the Battle of the Bulge, where they were in Bastogne, in the freezing cold, in dirt, no blankets, no nothing, freezing completely, miserable conditions, all of that, and still continue to do what they were doing,
Mm-hmm.
fight, then so can I.
Wow.
And I'm in a bed. I have a nice warm blanket and I have food in my belly and I have all the stuff. And if they can get through that in the worst of times where there's nothing that they can do to get warm or, change the situation, and whether they're going to live or die, and they can just keep doing it. Now, I'm not saying I was in their position. I'm not saying like mentally, like I'm right there and I know what they felt. But to me, that's the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
But they still had this brotherhood and this like mentality that you got to do it. I'm like, well, you got to do it.
Do you ever find comparing, or like I feel like that's just a natural human nature thing to do, is compare your journey to other journeys and kind of balance that at all?
Like to another parent, or like to these soldiers?
To another parent.
No, I don't know how to compare.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that would even look like, because each of my kids are different and they have varying needs. So I don't want this to come across the wrong way. I don't know what normal looks like.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, everyone's journey is unique to their journey. So your normal is your normal. Mine, everyone's got their normal.
I don't know I don't know what to compare it to. Yeah. Like I see my friends who do have typical children, but my mindset is never to be like, oh, I wish I had that.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, even on the hardest of days and the hardest of doctor days and the medical diagnoses, I can never trade that for the smiles that I get or the snuggles that I get at the end of the day, or just the hugs around the leg or any of those things. Because I'm like, life is hard for us, but these kiddos make it 10 times better by each of the things that they do and how they love the world, or how they even love me and my husband. I don't want to say I live and breathe for them, but it is true. I do. But to see them succeed in life, that tops everything. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, yeah. Are you able to kind of look ahead and look to the future, or are you like just take each day as it comes?
A mixture of both.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you have goals and dreams for where they're going to be.
I look to the future, and I do hope that each of the kids would be in a certain place by the time like they're either 18 or adults or whatever that life might look like. But I also take it day by day, because I don't want to get ahead of myself. I want to enjoy every moment that I have right now.
Right.
Because I feel like sometimes for myself, I can be like, oh, well, I want them to be in this place, so I'm going to project to this point and kind of pave a way for them to be in that area where they may not even want to be in that area in, the coming years. So I have to sometimes pull myself back and be like, just sit right here. Just enjoy where we're at. And because eventually they'll get there, Natalie. And when they get to that spot and they tell you, this is what I want, Mom, then you take off and make that happen for them. Each of the kids tell me, I don't want to get married, Mom. I just want to live with you forever. I'm like, that's fine. You want to live with me forever. That's fine. Or I'll take care of you when you're older, Mom. And I'm like, I really don't want you to take care of me when I'm older. I want you to go live your life and go travel and go live your life. And they're like, but we want you to go with us. And I was like, well, there's going to be times where you're going to have to go on your own, kid. And so they're too little to understand that fully. But, it is nice to hear, like, I'm going to live with you forever. And I'm like, sounds great.
So, how do you do it on the marriage front?
Marriage is hard in general. Yeah. And then you add in special needs. And ours is a little bit different because we have 4 with special needs. So there's always something going on. There's always
I know when I read that on the intake form, I was just like, I read the first and then the second and then the third, and I'm like getting chills. I mean, I've had students that had 3 in the family. I think you're the first I've heard 4. And then my mind immediately went to like, how do they tackle it together?
At the very beginning, and I did talk to my husband, and I said, like, we're going to be honest because marriage is hard. So in the beginning, it was really hard. So as Elias was about 3 years old when we found out he had the genetic condition, and Emery was about to turn a year old. So we had pretty much within a month span of the first diagnosis getting Emery's diagnosis too. So it kind of came right after each other. So it was really hard for us. And then COVID happened and Isley was born. And she got the same diagnosis. And we sat down and just said, I looked at him and I said, you did nothing wrong. And it's not your fault. It's no one's fault on why the kids have the 22q. And each of the kids are beautiful and wonderful. And at that moment, that's when he kind of was like, well, I've missed out on a little bit of some of these milestones that my kids were making. Because like you said, marriage is already difficult, but for marriages with special needs kids, the divorce rate is already astronomical. And it does fall a lot on the mom because usually that's the one parent that usually takes it and goes. And we've had those tough conversations, and we go to counseling, and that's been very beneficial for us, but also having our church community and him seeing that there's other dads there too, and seeing those other dads and watching these other dads, be a part of these conversations at the IEP tables at, different places, and that, it is overwhelming. And within this last year, he realized it a little bit more, how overwhelming it is to keep everything in track, because I ended up having to have a major surgery in July due to my own health issues coming about. But he had to take care of the kids for, 2 weeks. But I was still here, but he had to take a good majority of the load. And he's like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you keep everything in check, Natalie. I was just like, well, I have this system. He's like, it's just overwhelming. And I just didn't realize. And I'm sorry that I let you take that burden without me. And I said, I appreciate you realizing, and I'm glad that we're a team going forward. And that's what's the most beneficial for our kids and for us, and having those check-ins and daily check-ins and just like keeping us together, because that's what our kids need, and having that each of those relationships. Because as we already know, marriage is hard. And that's not even throwing in special needs. And
right. Well, that's powerful, just the realization that to have a team, and then also getting past some of that old stuff of like it's easy to hold resentments, but it didn't seem like you guys did that. It was just kind of like, okay, whatever, that's the past. Now we're a team, so let's move forward and figure it out. That's cool.
How overwhelming and how much so.
Yeah.
It's nice now that we are a team.
Powerful.
And he may not be at every IEP meeting or every doctor's appointment, but we communicate on what's happening. We can talk about it, or, if he wants to join in an IEP, I'm like, you're more than welcome to. And sometimes he's like, nah, you got it.
All right. They're not very fun anyways. I mean, I'm sure you're in like one every other week.
Yeah.
What's it like?
It does not help.
I mean, we could talk about these forever. What's it like on your side of the table?
Oh man, it's a lot better now.
Yeah.
I have a good team and for each of my kids, but it took a long time to get there.